We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We've got all the time in the world. No, we bloody well haven't. Right. Welcome to the Arsenal Asylum podcast. I'm your host, Mod, aka Kick Up the Arse. And we're here with two of my fellow institutionalized gooners, Mr. Naughty Nigel David.
What's up, Mod? Good to be here.
I'm not sure, is it, after today's result?
I say that. I say that through gritted teeth, Mod, through gritted teeth.
And the illustrious Mr. Swerve Merv.
Good evening, gents. Good evening. Inside my head right now lives a little mini Davina McCall, and what she's saying is, you're live on the Arsenal Asylum podcast, Merv. Please do not swear, because I am livid tonight. But I'ma save it. Gents, because, I'm grown. So,
Well, you're here to express yourself.
Indeed.
As that old tune used to go. So no more time for pleasantries. Let's get on to the Wolves result. Another loss. It's 1 point now from 3 games. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What's going on, lads?
I mean, I don't know where to begin. I'm just trying to stay calm at the moment, Mod. Try and maintain perspective, but when the team put out performance after performance like that, it becomes hard. I was saying in the conversation I was had is probably, with the greatest respects to that team and the effort they're putting in, it's a blessing in disguise at the moment that the fans aren't in that stadium, because the atmosphere would just be toxic. We're just not doing the. Yes, you can argue the players aren't good enough, or Arteta doesn't have the players that he wants. My question, or what my statement to that is that, look, we've seen these players put in performances like your Chelseas, like your Man Cities, where in the FA Cup last season, where this team has played at levels where the intensity has looked like everyone's given 100%. We are fighting for every second ball. We don't look like we're able, a team that you can slice through like a hot knife through butter. So just the contrast just makes it frustrating, Mod. I don't know, but what about you? Matt?
Yeah, I pretty much sit on the same page as you there, Nige. It is frustrating because on the one hand, I can see us developing an identity. Hard as that is in this moment, I can see us developing an identity where we're generally hard to break down. The stat I saw before tonight's game is that we've conceded the least amount of goals, barring those people up the road who I'm not going to mention. But yeah, so we've got a pretty good defensive record. The only thing is, it's come at the expense of our attacking flair and our creativity. And I just think to myself, well, what will it take for us to now move from that next step? Because for many years, it's been a case of our defense has been weak. We've been lapped. We've been weak. But I don't know about you guys, but you can't necessarily say that about this current team. They're not necessarily weak or defensively unstable, but at the same time, there's just something I can't put my hand on. And yeah, it's terribly frustrating. And obviously tonight, with the game against Wolves, you just think to yourself, well, there were fundamental mistakes made throughout, and we'll get into the individual performances, I'm sure, but as a collective, there were just some fundamental basic mistakes that a team hoping to challenge, hoping to play in the Champions League really can't afford to make. And for the last month of November, which historically is our bogey month, we've just been making them far too often for me. And yeah, it's just frustrating. It really is.
Yeah. I don't know. Uh it's kind of funny because I think if we would have won today, we would have been within 3 points of Chelsea, who are currently in third. So for me, I was looking at this as a must-win game. I was also kind of looking at the formation that we played against Molde, and I know that the personnel was slightly different, but I thought it gave us more of an attacking, bit more attacking options, a bit more of an attacking flair up front. With two strikers or one striker playing up top and the other one sitting just behind. Excuse me, just behind in the hole. So for me, it was really, really, really kind of disappointing to see us kind of revert back to type, a 4-5-1 formation, almost playing at home. Joe Willock was supposed to be playing in the hole, but he just seemed like he was, an extra deep line midfielder at some points in the game.
He was trying to make stuff happen, by the way. He was trying to make things happen.
No, he was, and for me, he's one of the positives. If I'm going to be completely honest, but there were far too few. We're going to touch on the forward situation and stuff, but for me, the midfield was lacking today. I just felt that the Xhaka Danny partnership, as it were, was null and void. I just felt it didn't. At no point did they seem to dominate the game and take the game by the scruff of the neck, and that's what was needed. On top of that, Traore was running riot, and so was Neto on the flanks.
Neto was amazing tonight. I was really impressed with Neto.
And it was quite interesting that Nuno, for the second game running now, has changed his tactics and decided to go with a flat back four and not play the three central defenders. So he had made that option or decision to play a more attacking formation against us. And I just kind of hope that, with the personnel or looking on paper, it looked like, we could reciprocate, but we just didn't. And, kind of what Nigel was saying earlier, what on earth would it have been like if there was fans in the bloody stadium? They would have been getting a wrath. And it wouldn't have been nice at all for Mr. Arteta. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just to jump in there, Mod. I think you can summarise, as a collective, yes, the performance was up to par, but if you was really to zone in, for me, probably what the heart of the problem, I think you just mentioned it, that double pivot of Xhaka and Danny today offered next to nothing defensively, because Danny likes to get himself about, but he's not a physical presence of sorts. Does well from time to time, but today wasn't his day. And on the ball, where you'd probably think he'd be a little stronger, or you'd hope for him to, start to dictate the tempo of the match, the rhythm, slower passing down, speed it up when it's necessary, know when to control it in those tight situations and just relieve everyone of pressure. That just wasn't there. I think, in the WhatsApp group, someone mentioned, imagine that was Santi playing in that position today.
Yeah.
Santi, you don't want to hold on to past glories, but you can just see it. Santi holds on to that ball. Santi beats 2 or 3 players. He opens up the field, and
Yeah.
we just become a lot more progressive. And I'm not laying the blame entirely at Danny's feet, but that Danny and Xhaka pivot immobility and the lack of, I guess, progressive passing. A lot of it is backwards, a lot of it is sideways, and not very quickly. I think from there, when you don't, that's the basis you're working off. Saka and Willian, as much as I don't think they did great in the bits that they had, weren't really offered much. I think that's something that we've really got to look at. Party and El Neni aren't going to be available for the 40-45 games left we've got to play this season. So guys like Xhaka and Danny are unfortunately or fortunately going to have to step up. And I think they need to know that today wasn't acceptable. I'd assume that they know that today's performance just wasn't acceptable in the middle of the park. They were out for on both fronts, which as a team that wants to control the ball just didn't make sense.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I totally agree. I was going to talk about Arteta now a little bit, but I think because we kind of touched on it in this segment quite a bit, our inability to score from open play is now extended to 5 league matches. Pepe's strike in the bottom corner against Sheffield United at the beginning of October was Arsenal's last goal from open play in the Premier League. And our only other league goal since then is Aubameyang's penalty versus Man United. So there's clearly a problem. How would we address it? How do we address it, in your opinion, Mav?
I mean, there appears to be a few factors to this. One being Ober's lacking confidence, which you can see it on the pitch. You can see it in his approach in and around the box. He's always perhaps looking to lay it off to Saka, or he almost seems afraid to take a shot now, which you just never saw from him last season. So there's that. There's the intangible issue of the lack of confidence. Then, of course, there's the setup where we play predominantly with him on the left rather than in the middle. And there's several schools of thought to this and how effective he would be, or how much more effective he would be were he to play in the middle. But of course,
he played in the middle. Yeah,
exactly.
He played in the middle today. Yeah.
And we've seen pretty much the same result. So I think it goes deeper than surface level tactics. I think there's a lot to do with the player's psyche and how they feel. And I think, we've all seen Arsenal of old when they've been at their best. It's almost like a collective mentality, which just says we can beat anyone. And I would say the collective mentality of this current team in this moment is that it says, we're not sure if we can beat everyone, but we're going to have a go. So there's almost a hit and hope mentality about us, which was never there before, certainly not under the Wenger years. And again, this isn't me trying to pin up Mikel against Arsene, because I think that would be grossly unfair. So I guess in answer to your question, Mod, how we go about fixing it, I think time is perhaps the only healer in this respect, and the players kind of getting that mentality back, because we know the personnel is there to a large extent. For me, it's more or less a confidence issue, and until these group of players can get that back, get that swagger back, the feeling we had after the FA Cup, where we've gone on and we've beaten City, we've beaten Chelsea, we've beaten Liverpool, albeit in the Charity Shield, there was a collective mentality which said, okay, on our day we can beat anyone, and yes, this is the league, so we're going to go and try and do it there. We seem to have lost our way with that. So there's no hard and fast rule to this. There's no quick fixes, I'm afraid. This is going to take time.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm I'm struggling to put my finger on it because obviously there was a period where we looked like we were literally every game, and I likened it to being like a cup team. Every game was like a battle. No matter who it was our cup final, and we were gonna play with our all. I just feel that in the transition from going from that type of football to then trying to become a little bit more expansive, it's like we've almost lost our identity again, and we need to kind of try and get it back. But what was your thoughts, Nige?
I think in regards to getting us to play to create more chances, I was looking at, I was watching the Liverpool game, I think, was it yesterday? And for as great as they weren't playing, one thing you noticed about, certainly about Jota and Salah, is they occupy pretty similar positions to what Saka and Willian were occupying for us today.
Yeah.
But those guys would always seem to be able to find spaces in those little pockets, have two or 3 seconds to receive the ball, turn and run at defenses. For whatever reason, our offensive players always seem to have 2 or 3 men up against them, and I think it's because fundamentally because we play 3 at the back, we're essentially compensating for having that extra offensive body, so we're always effectively outnumbered by defenders. It just makes it harder for guys to find those pockets of space. Because we've got 3 guys playing centre back rather than 2. You drop an extra man in midfield, it gives the opposition something to think about.
But today we have.
So go ahead.
I was going to say today we had 4 at the back, I think, rather than the 3, and it was more of a 4-4-1-1, 4-5-1, 4-2-3-1, whatever way you want to kind of put it. But yeah, I mean, I kind of think that before, when we were playing that 3 at the back, it kind of made us all know that everyone had to kind of put in the shift and battle. And at the moment, it seems like since we're tinkering around a little bit, trying to find that little bit more, it's that part of the game just seems lost anyway. Sorry, Merv, you were going to say something on the topic.
Somebody in the group made a really, really good point. I think it was Masito. Basically, he was a firm critic of Emery this time last year and a bit further back from there. And he basically said, I've actually come to realise that the problem wasn't Unai, it was Arsenal. And for me, it kind of summed it up, because I guess back at the time, I was of the mentality that anybody that came in would have a problem further down the stretch when it came to this team. Well, exactly. I know you are on board with that sentiment as well. So I guess the thinking behind it was we would need to accept a period of transition and hardship before things got better. And us winning the FA Cup, in many respects, or as good as it was and as fantastic as it was for Arteta to get that under his belt, I think that has almost built a rod for his own back and could potentially work out to be a disadvantage, because now it just means people expect success from him rather than the leeway he was given. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, no, you're right. Papering over the cracks almost. And I feel that kind of leads on to the next point that we're going to discuss, which is, Arteta's literally gone from hero to zero. And amongst some of the gooners, the knives are already out. And as you quite rightly alluded to, Unai was in a better position, last year. Than actually Arteta is. So, Nige, where do you think he goes from here?
Look, I think Knives Out is definitely a little preemptive, but sorry, excuse me. I think Knives Out is definitely a little preemptive. But look, I think Arteta's got to take a long, hard look at himself. Transition is one thing, but I don't think any Arsenal fan is going to stand for coming, ending up 14th, 15th, or much lower than we did last season. I think last season was pretty much where we thought the bottom of the bottomless pit was for us in terms of how low we could sink as a club. Look, I think Arteta's done some positive things, but at the end of the day, this is a results-driven business. I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you I'm going to be on the Arteta train and believe through thick and through if we're in, if we haven't won a game by February. I'm realistic, we are in a performance-driven business at the end of the day, and ultimately it's his job. I believe in his methods, but his methods have to yield results, and they have to yield results quickly, better than they are now. Because on this course, then the reality is Arteta won't make it until the end of the season, and that's not me saying Arteta out. That's just the reality of football.
Everything that we've seen thus far, as Murph said earlier, we definitely know that it was a team in that sort of transitional period. I did think things were going to get ugly. I didn't think we'll be playing particularly great football. But one thing I do still find shocking is that we can't seem to get the ball to our forwards, and I just can't understand why. I mean, lesser teams can manage to do it with lesser players. I know we've exhausted the Ozil debate, but for the first time, I must admit that I sat down in my chair today and thought, I think we could have done with him.
Don't let Steph hear you say that. Do not let Steph hear you say that.
Yeah, the Azalites will be out. The Azalites will be out in full force.
Oh man, but it's just I just
we can edit it out. We can
come.
edit it out. It's fine. We can edit it.
I know it's gonna come. I know it's gonna come eventually, and things are gonna start clicking. And yeah, Partey was out as well. And he was supposed to be a big addition to the side. El Neni also was starting to look like he could become, a pivotal player within the squad and someone that could really contribute in big games. Martinelli is still out as well. So there are other options available to us, despite the man who will now henceforth remain nameless.
And look, sorry, just to jump in there, Mod. I hear your wise years of perspective coming in there and looking at the bigger picture. I do just wanted to pick up on, we was talking about it in the group. One player, again, not to single out individuals as a collective, as a performance, but one player I think we maybe disagree on in terms of expected level of performance is Mr. Our Brazilian Willian. Another tepid performance today for me. Again, not to single him out, but if we are going to look at him individually, this has pretty much been on brand for what I've seen of Willian over the years. And in my humble opinion, what do you think of him? What did you think of him today?
No, well, look, there's two things. I don't think he had a particularly great game. I don't think many players did. But then he got the assist, didn't he? So, in terms of who created the one goal that we were able to put in the net,
fair.
It was him. So, I don't think I don't think we've seen anywhere near the best of Willian. And as I was going over the stats with you earlier when we were having a chat, last couple of seasons, He's basically been responsible for a goal 1 every 2 to 1 every 2.5 games consistently over the last few seasons for Chelsea. He's a winner. He's practically won nearly everything in the game, certainly on the domestic level and the European level, and international level. I think they might have won the Olympics one year or something like that. But he's a damn good player. He's a proven player, and he's a top quality player, and he's a winner. And I just don't think we've seen that player yet at the Arsenal in the red and white, the colours of red and white. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm not disappointed, because I am. I am. I just think that he could give a bit more. And I know that there's something not right. Every other week I'm hearing about this calf injury. It was even on the Arsenal website that he's carrying a calf injury. Well, he's been carrying it all season. What's going on? Do we feel that because obviously Pepe got that red card, he's banned for the next 3 games. Do we feel that because of that we are almost forced to play him? Was Arteta feeling that because he couldn't rely on consistency from Pepe, that he was almost forced to play Willian to get someone that, does exactly what he says in the tin, even if it's only 70% of his capabilities because he's carrying a knock? I don't know, but something isn't right. There's something going on there. And that's all I was saying from my point of view. Merv, did you want to have something to say on this topic?
Yeah, I was going to say it would be in keeping with his off performances, really, because I don't know about anyone else. I mean, Nige, you said it's pretty much on brand from what you've seen of Willian. I don't know if I necessarily agree. I just feel like somehow he was more effective for Chelsea. I'm not saying he had standout performances week in, week out by any means, but the level of abject performances we've had from him is just, I don't think I ever saw him play as bad as he has for us that he did for Chelsea. I can't remember. Nothing really springs to mind. Or of course, I'm willing to allow for an element of recency bias there, and particularly as I pay more attention to Arsenal. But yeah, I just think that from Willian's perspective, he is a proven winner. He's a proven player in the Premier League, and I do think it's more approaching the truth to suggest that Mikel has been forced to play Willian because he can't trust Pepe, and Pepe, for whatever reason, is still finding his feet in the Premier League, but it hasn't quite clicked for him yet. I mean, it's clicking in the Europa, but it's one thing to score against Mulder in the Europa, but it's a completely different thing to play against Leeds in midweek, and we've all seen how that turned out. So yeah, I think there's a lot of weight placed on Willian, and he's not used to the onus being put on him that much. Certainly not at Chelsea, he wasn't. So we are definitely overusing him in a minute.
Yeah, I get that as well, and that's a valid point, because obviously when you think about the players that he had around him at Chelsea, he had Hazard on the other side, he was there, and he's had some quality players. He's got Kante there in the midfield. I suppose us having Partey would help. Just to feel that he hasn't got to do as much of that legwork. I mean, don't get me wrong, he worked hard for Chelsea, and they always have under their management. Defense is as important as attack with those guys, and it has been traditionally. It's just I'm scratching my head, but I hope that and pray that he comes through. But that being said, he's created a third of our team goals in the league. With now 3 assists this season. Now that's not to say that that's a great anything great, because we've only scored 10 goals.
Right.
But and of those performances, for him to get those stats of roughly a third of assists, goals and assists or whatever he's got, the first game of the season, which was a Fulham game, and this game that's just passed. So, it's not great. The consistency level isn't there. Certainly agree with you there, Nigel. In this instance, Chelsea days, not so much, because I think that's really what we bought into when we signed him, was the fact that he was consistent. His stats were consistent over a season. You kind of knew what you was kind of, what it kind of says on the tin, exactly what you're going to get on the tin, as they say. So for me, I just don't think we've got the same player.
We definitely don't. We've got a tribute act in many respects, but
And I hear you, and I probably do agree. And no, I definitely do agree. We haven't got. There's definitely room for improvement. Really, this Willian that we've got from Chelsea, even the Chelsea version was a better player. I guess probably my thought is I don't think the Chelsea version was honestly that much more of a better player, just in terms of maybe what I've seen. I think he's good at what he does, and I think he was always probably more loved for. Not to say he was never productive on the ball. Willian had some very special moments, and he is capable of producing some very special things. But I think he was, from what I've seen, maybe more loved for his things like his work rate and some of the more intangibles, as well as and allowing kind of guys like Hazard and whoever was in at Chelsea at the time to flourish. He always did that dirty work that managers loved. So yeah, I don't know, man. I look at Willian and I looked at the transfer, and I always thought Willian was a guy who was going to come in and maybe more make appearances off the. I didn't see Willian starting for us. I didn't envisage Willian would be starting for us. However many 8 out of the 9 games that however many games we played this season.
I did.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I just kind of feel that I felt with Willian that he was there to almost guide Pepe into what it takes to be a professional in that position at the highest level and a winner.
Yeah.
That's what I thought his role was, in the same way that David Luiz's role has been more of like a father figure,
mentor,
coach on the pitch, mentor. Yeah. So that's the way that I saw him. It's like, this is what you got to do in games. It's not all just about you cutting in on your left peg and having a strike, or being a dead ball specialist, because William was all of those. For Chelsea. Yeah. And also creating goals, assists, blah, blah, blah. It's about your work rate. And that's what Willian had that Pepe didn't. Obviously, Pepe's put that more into his game now. You can see that coming into his game because Arteta's just not accepting anything less. But that's what I saw his role as, a short-term fix more than anything else. But at the moment, like I said, I don't even think we're getting that.
Yeah, I agree.
The next game on our trip to Mourinho and the Spuds. That's White Hart Lane.
What do we think of Tottenham?
Family show. Dear, it's a family show. We won't go there. All right, but yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts? Because, mate, it's not looking good at the moment, is it? Let's have it right.
It's not looking great. But then again, we've been here before, guys. We've been here before, where we've been underperforming on the lead up to a North London derby, and we've gone in, and for whatever reason, the managers basically said to the players, listen, it's one thing to lose to everybody else. We don't lose to our neighbours. We don't lose to the people that we consider our youngins, just noisy neighbours. Yeah. So for that, I fully expect. I expect it for two reasons. I expect it for the fact that we're not playing at home, because our home record this season has been worse than our away record, and I don't
True.
expect the level of objectivity that we saw against Wolves today, against the Mourinho Spurs, because of what happened when we played them in the summer at the back end of last.
That's how they beat. That's how they beat us the last time, wasn't it? They're just playing.
Oh yeah,
defensively and just sucking it all up, and then just hitting us with a sucker punch.
Put the bus in park is classic Mourinho. Put the bus in park and hit them on the counter. It's an effective strategy. I feel Arteta's got enough to counter that, and I know in the dressing room for certain he's basically going to say, "Look, we're 3 games without a win, guys. It really isn't good enough." And I don't need to tell you this is a North London derby. You should know from the jump that I will not tolerate defeat in this game. I will not tolerate it. And I'd like to think Arteta's carrying that message right throughout this week, because it's so important.
Personnel-wise, though, just before I bring in Nige, personnel-wise, looking at it, we've got still a few players missing. Yeah, I mean, Pepe's not available, obviously, because that's the second game he's going to sit out on his red card. Obviously, Partey, it looks like, may not be ready up until December. Christmas, maybe into the new year, I'm hearing. So that could be a major problem. I'm not sure on any situation. Obviously, Martinelli probably needs another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Some game with the under 23s to get himself up to speed.
So we're thin on the ground. I mean, there's no getting away from it. We're thin on the ground in terms of personnel. The players that are fit are devoid of confidence. So yeah, it's on the surface, it's a bad situation all round. However, what I feel we do have working in our favour is this feeling of regret, and this feeling of just wanting to kickstart a season, because they know that the knives are out. So I expect this team to respond, and whether that's a case of Laka being brought back in to do a lot of the donkey work that he was doing at Old Trafford. If that means El Neni coming in, because we know that he's a clean passer of the ball in midfield, and I expect him to take the place of Xhaka, because Xhaka was just, well, okay, I'll keep it clean. Xhaka wasn't great tonight.
Xhaka was caca.
Podcast title right there. So yeah, we've got personnel to come in. KT, I know, is going to be bang up for it. Hector, I know, is going to be bang up for it. I've been impressed with those two, despite everything. Gabriel
well,
at the back, So yeah, there's reasons to be positive, guys, going in to North London derby. And just imagine the prize at stake is to just wipe Mourinho's snotty little face in it. I mean, come on. I mean, is that not
little smile?
What more can you want?
Come on, that's the prize. That's the trophy, lads.
Nige.
I was just thinking, how do I feel? I imagine this is how the 300 felt when they were looking at the Persian army. It's you might have a little sense of fear and trepidation in your eyes, but at the end of the day, you're still Spartans. So look, I'm expecting a victory, and I'm not going to expect any less, just because we're a little thin on bodies on the ground.
Come on.
Spurs are Spurs, and we'll do what we'll do. But
Arteta, I'm hoping the Halen boys, at the very least, just give it 110% and just.
They need to, and I think at the very least, I think Arteta just needs to make sure that everyone's ready to fight for every inch. Scrap for every ball, every first ball, every second ball. Make sure no quarters given, and I think our football will do the rest. But yeah, man, look, this is a big game for Arteta. Again, I think we're a long way off from knives or the board having any knives out for Arteta, but a bad result here would go a long way to setting wheels in motion to have people looking at him differently. And again, that's not
Very.
an agenda. That's just the reality of fans. Imagine how people feel. The Asylum was after a 2-1 result to Wolves. You can only imagine if that result is replicated as with Spurs. So
Yeah. I think some of them will be ODing off their meds, I think. But
yeah. Definitely have to lock the Asylum down for a few days, maybe.
way to start feeding over, because we got to start feeding the goat. You're not getting any service of note at the moment, and even today, I know some people are criticizing him, but you've got to give him the ball in the right areas for him to be able to do something with it. And as much as I love Saka, and he's a quality player and will be, a great player in the Premier League, I don't know why. Maybe it's a lack of confidence or whatever, since he's been sort of relegated to the bench over certain games or whatever. But his service today wasn't great. Oba made a few beautiful runs, especially in the first half, off the ball, and all he needed was that nicely weighted pass, and he was in on goal on his own like 2-3 times, where you would have backed him to just slot it in the back of the net. And he just wasn't getting that service at all, and it's worrying. It's worrying, because I in a way, like you said earlier, I'm glad that the fans aren't there, because they'll probably be turning on these boys, the younger kids now. But at the moment they're protected. But really and truly, we've got to find a way of getting them the ball. And if we can do that, I agree. The game's ours for the taking.
For sure.
I still feel we got a strong enough side. But yeah, I mean, we could talk all night on this, but it's one of those ones where we're going to have to bring the pod to an end.
Indeed.
It's been an absolute pleasure as always, lads.
As always.
For sure.
So, yeah, don't forget to like, listen, share, and subscribe. I've been your host, Mod Russell, a.k.a. Kick Up the Arse. And we're signing off with the man like Naughty Nigel David.
Yo. Peace and love, people.
And the man like Swerve Merv.
Blessings to all. We will get through this, as Daniel Bedingfield once said. Just keep the faith. We trust. Come on, the Arsenal.
Come on, the Arsenal. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Up the Arsenal. Peace.